to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
I placed it for a second there.
All right, Mike.
Good evening. You were provided some information tonight from the Veterans Services Officer, and if you have any questions on that, she said she's more than willing to answer them. She just thought she'd give you some information, especially some of the newer members, on the 115 benefits and what we provide under that. At the last meeting, we talked about the article that the sewer department has on the special, and members of the commission and the commission's engineer, Fran Yanuskevitz, and Bernie Marshall, the superintendent, are here tonight, just to give you some more information on this article. And I did talk with someone from the Housing Authority today, and they couldn't be here tonight, but they wanted to express how important this is to them, because their system up is a fail right now. They're pumping almost every day, and he did say they have almost $1.2 million to do something on their property, and they would much rather tie into the town source, use that money to tie into the town sewer system. And also, they're concerned, that's why this is on the special, so it can get going right away. They're concerned that they're not sure how long that grant money that they have that's been dedicated to them is going to be held, and that we need to show that we're moving forward so that they can show that the money is going to be used for this purpose. And also, we have two other issues with timing deadlines in August. One is for the SRF funding, and the other one is that, is it a Mass Works grant that we're looking at a Mass Works infrastructure grant, which also the deadline is in August. So right now, the proposal is to have, as was said the other night, the Housing Authority, a pump station at the Housing Authority that would go up approximately to here, and then the high school and the Yale School would be able to tie in by gravity. We did have discussion with the school department, and for a number of reasons, they're very concerned about, one of the options was talked about cutting through the school property, and where the football field is, the track, the new high school project, there really isn't room to be cutting through there. And then the other meeting we had tonight at Capitol, where Capitol did vote, the Capitol Committee did vote to recommend this article, was that there are businesses along West Main Street that really could use SOAR. This would be good for economic development along West Main, and would rather see it out in the street than just cutting through all the school property. And if the engineers here can provide you some more information or answer questions that you might have.
I just have a question. When you said the deadline is in August, what has to be done by August?
Fran, you want to?
So first thing first with the SRF money, and by the way, one of the things we probably failed to talk about last meeting is that when we had that big powwow with Jay Barrows and Steve on DEP, one of the things the DEP folks were talking to us about SRF money is that the current project you had recently completed at the town center, the Wheaton Pump Station, is 2% loan. They promised they would do everything they could that this project, should it move forward, would be funded at a 0% loan, so no interest. So that application, it's not the full application that is submitted, but it's something called a PEF, Project Evaluation Form. That has to be done in August. It lays out the whole project, lays out the costs, how it's being paid for, the need for the project. A lot of the reports have been done that could be compiled, that could be put into that, but the submittal ends up being about that thick to get that project evaluation form done. That's part A for an SRF loan. Although they mentioned principal forgiveness, I think that's a hate the expression, pipe dream. I don't think that's going to happen. The second part is a Mass Works infrastructure grant. The state, it's literally an application, very similar to the information that'd be generated here. We would have to generate, the town would have to generate information on the specific properties that would be served, issues like potential development that's going to happen, because it's really about business and jobs. That's really what this application is for. That's what they fund, is infrastructure for that. So those two things would have to be done in August in order to make the town eligible to get those monies. Those monies would become available if you were successful in January.
Yeah, what does SRF stand for?
State Revolving Fund, right?
Okay,
Sorry about that.
that's all right. Does anyone have any questions? We had a pretty lengthy overview last week, so, Paul?
Let me begin by saying, members of this committee who've been here for a while will know that once a year I always leave my glasses at home.
And it's tonight?
And this is, and it won't make any difference. This is the night I did it. But while I had my glasses on this afternoon, I spent a good deal of time looking at both the article and the map and thinking about all of this. And I cannot be yet persuaded to vote for this. I find not, and it has nothing to do with the main proposal involving the Housing Authority, though I still don't understand why it is that we can't move up and tie the Housing Authorities, we'd always hoped we would, with the middle school. I know you said last time that I guess the state wouldn't allow it, or somebody wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, and in fact, Wade's here. He could probably talk about that more.
Well,
better
I
than
don't
me.
know. If that's the case, it doesn't make sense to me, but I don't need a long explanation now. I have enormous problems with the fact that it seems to me that, at least from what we heard last time, nobody really knew what they were going to get and what it was going to cost, or what the development was going to be like going up Main Street. Going up and down, didn't know what you were going to find, whether you'd be in the street, whether you could be off the street. This is what we heard last time. And I do not understand why there is a necessity to go up to the center and down, not just because I think it's going to cost a hell of a lot more than alternative ways to go, but because I think of the disruption to the traffic that goes through the center for a long period of time. I mean, you have to think a little bit about what it means to the people in the town and the people coming through. I still see no reason, and I'm not talking about the football field or anything else, why we can't come down to where the outlet now from the Yale School and the high school goes into that pipe, back it up through to the pumping station that's in back of the Yale School, which is what we had always planned to do, and then come down Seminary Way and down Taunton Avenue and in. That's much easier to do. The digging, the whole thing would be much easier, unless, as you said, you run into ledge. But you can run into ledge anywhere. And what we gain by going through the center, I still don't see, given that there's a church and a historical society and a few others that are there, that if you're talking about connecting and going up to Main Street, one side of Main Street is totally owned by the college all the way up to beyond where the baseball field is, and they're all tied in. Everything on that side is tied in, and one that's across the street on the other side of Main Street is tied in to the college. And the same thing if you come up from the center to Seminary Way, to Fillmore Drive, one side of the street is totally college, and some of it on the other side is. You're gaining some, I know. There's Walgreens and those places that you could gain. But I'm not convinced about the cost. I looked at the article. The article basically says 3.2. We heard from Bill that it's going to cost what it's going to cost in terms of interest. And the article gives carte blanche, once this is passed, for the commission to spend whatever it needs to and to assess whatever it needs to get the job done. It's not even limited to this. This is, you could borrow so much, but then it says you can get the rest by your hookup fees and other things of that sort. In other words, we're funding a total project and are giving a carte blanche for a total project where I'm not even sure we have a good idea of what it's going to cost. I know you've done all of this work, and I'm absolutely convinced that it would cost a lot less not to come through from the housing authority through the high school football fields and so forth, but to come down the street to where the hookup goes in, go back of the Yale School, go through the opening that exists from the town onto Seminary Way, down Taunton Avenue and in. It's a much simpler. It doesn't disrupt things nearly as much. And I have yet to be persuaded that this has been looked at carefully enough and assessed. I think you've assessed it as well as you possibly could. But I'm just, there's not enough information there. There's too many unknowns for me to back an article that basically just says, go ahead and do it. Doesn't really matter what it costs. You got to get it done.
Well,
I also, one final thing. I know that the Housing Authority would like this better. But the Housing Authority, and one of the reasons I guess it can't sign up with the middle school is because it's a state thing. The Housing Authority is, and this is a community thing, the middle school one. And they probably can only go into a total public sewage system and not a semi-private one, which is sort of what the school is. But this is really the Housing Authority's problem. And we are under no obligation to solve it at great cost to the town if it isn't good for the town. It is good for the town, because this is the Norton Housing Authority. I understand all of that. But I don't like the feeling that somehow we must do whatever is necessary, because unlike a public school system failing or other things, they've got the 1.1, it was one that was given to them to solve the problem on their own. They're going to give it to us. Great, that's fine. And I understand that. But I am just absolutely not convinced that this is the wisest way to move on this. And I think it'll be very disruptive for a long period of time and may cost the town. I can see them coming back for more monies or this, that, and the other. We've run into this before. And, well, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at it, you say it's good for the town, for the housing authority, but it also goes through the main business district, if we have one, in town. And, it does encompass the schools and potentially, the residents as well along the way. But my question is, if we don't act now, I mean, I know that everyone always has a problem whenever we have to act on this right away. I mean, it's like the salesman, the deal's today, not tomorrow. But, if it doesn't happen today, are the SRF funds and the Mass Works money gone? Or
Right now, the Housing Authority is not exactly sure on how long they have for that 1.1 that's going to go into the project. And if I just can say one thing to add from the Housing Authority to the actual treatment facility, the DEP has already said that treatment facility cannot house or cannot take any of the Housing Authority's flow. So that's simply out of the equation totally. That's why this whole project is in its entirety the way it is right now. From the Housing Authority down, picking up the two schools, all the businesses along West Main Street, and going to the heart and soul that we put in at Wheaton College, which is the center pump station. That was the design. This right here is the first plan for the next 30 years of our sewer system in Norton. This is the second leg of that journey.
Can I respond directly to Paul on a couple of things? I'll bring you back to when we did the project for the town center and the town center pump station. If you remember correctly, that original appropriation was not to put the force main and the gravity sewer where it ended up being. The original plan was to go down 123 and tie in, I always call it the hump, where the interceptor was. That was the original game plan, and that changed when the school and the LG issue was brought to the forefront. So these routes can change during the design process. So we're not committed to this alignment. Obviously, it makes sense to look at possibly, for a portion of it, maybe going through the back, avoiding the town center, the traffic issues that go along with it. But by going to the center, there's other potential legs of the sewer system that you would actually be getting access to. That's part of the reason for it. But there's no reason we can't look at going through the back a little ways anyway, as far as from the Yale School up Seminary Way to come in down Taunton and take a right down, I guess it's Howard Street. So that can be done, Paul. So that's not cast in concrete.
But I mean, we're talking, it could be, might be, you know, it looked at, you know, I know you have a
Yeah.
plan, but for that to happen, that alters the entire project.
It changes it. It does. Because there's certain properties won't get served.
Bill?
So, if I recall from the last meeting, the middle school is having its issues. And so sometime in the future, we would want to tie that in. If you're talking about 0% money, why isn't that now? And can someone explain to me again why the 4-inch main that goes down the street to the middle school is not usable? So why was it put in at cost and now we can't use it?
And well, this portion will not be used. That whole reversal of flow issue, it's still a possibility, not a great solution. Don't forget, that 4-inch that the town put in inside that 12-inch main pretty much starts at the tie-in where the high school ties in now, and the L school. That's where it starts. That's where it ended, okay? That line never continued further up
Right.
toward the center of town. That's it. So there is in fact a small piece that's there. That line not only goes to the middle school, it continues all the way down to the Solomon East School. So when that line was put in, and I found a report, actually within the last week, that talked about that, and the reason it was done was to tie in all 3 schools into the middle school. And obviously what happened is the analysis was done showed that it really couldn't take all 3. I actually found a report that said that. So we've actually talked today to the superintendent of schools about should the middle school get in and want to get in on its own, that 4-inch line would in fact be used for a pump station at the middle school to tie in it to the high point and without having to disrupt more of West Main Street. So that line could and would be used for that.
So then at 0%.
Okay,
That's possible.
I'll comment on that. The reason we stopped at the Housing Authority is that the influx of cash, okay, and the 1.17 million. Going beyond there, I mean, yes, we could probably use that money to do that as well. But in talking to the superintendent, there's, I guess, a longer plan here to do what needs to be done, see how it works, see how because before the Yale School and the high school were tied in, that plant, even though the flows were low, met permit. So that's the key issue here, is the reason the school department's on the hook is hasn't met permit for consecutive months, many consecutive months. And that's why DEP wants the school department to take some action. Taking the flows out from the Yale School and the high school would put it back where it was when it was meeting permit, and to take a look at how that would work. The school department would have other options potentially. If only the high school was coming in, and I know it's a bad solution, but a solution could be to abandon the treatment plant and going back to a big septic system for this. And it's really not that big because the flows aren't as big as they were. So there's a whole bunch of different options that the town and the school department can entertain once this first phase gets done.
Can somebody explain to me just a quick question. I hate to be an expert on sewage as my forte, but can somebody explain to me why sending our sewage up to the middle school plant is a problem because of ammonia? Is there something in the high school that generates ammonia different than sewage that goes someplace else? Is there a
No, not at
special
all.
sewage that
No, not
comes
at all.
out of it?
It's sewage is sewage, and it's sanitary waste for the most part. And-
Why is it that this one can't take it because of all I heard the word ammonia is the reason why.
That adds nitrogen in the form of ammonia, which is difficult to denitrify.
Okay? But what makes that different? Didn't we know that that's part of sewage?
Of course you did.
Then we had that plant going for how long now? That middle school was built in '98.
But the
We must be-
DEP changes their regulations for how much nitrogen you can actually put into the ground. And that has something to do with what's going on right now. They are no longer meeting their permit for nitrogen. They're gonna have to remove more nitrogen, which the school is gonna have to spend more money in a nitrogen removal process while they treat their waste.
So in 1998, it was different, and today it's an
Absolutely.
order of magnitude significant. So
Absolutely.
we must have, our system must be significantly better than, if that thing can't handle the nitrogen because of the excess flow we're sending it, if it just had the middle school, it would be fine.
Right now, yes.
It can do it just doing the
We
middle
believe so,
school.
yes. Going back to the way it was before it was introduced from the Yale and the high school, we believe that it will.
See, this is what makes me get like Paul. This is history all over again. That's our big dig, the middle school.
I understand that.
Okay? We have put more money into the newest school in our system
Mm-hmm.
than any other school. The Yale School, which was built when it was a one school, when Paul was there and we had lamps, that school is still in better shape than the middle school, okay? It's just, it's scary, okay? Now,
Unfortunately, DEP regulates what.
but here's the other
we can
thing.
do, sir.
We're rushing into this because the the state has a problem, okay? We're rushing in it because they have the problem. Now, if the 3.2 million becomes 4.6 million, the state said, hey, here's your 1.1 million, we're out of here. Well, we rushed into the middle school too. We had to have a special meeting because the middle school, when we built it, that was a problem. We had to get that thing right away, buy the land, because the land was gonna disappear. Every time we rush into something, we wind up going down the tubes, okay? And I can quote many items where we study something and then rush into it, and then what happens is it doesn't work. This is probably great for the town, but like Paul says, and I've read it too, it's open-ended. Okay, just like the Big Dig was gonna be 5 billion and
We're
wound
asking
up
to borrow
14.
$3.32 million.
But that's not the end of it. If at the end of $3.2 million,
332.
we're not done, 3.2320, if it's not done, we're on the hook for whatever has to get done.
That's what that says.
That's not the bottom end of it. That says we will build a system. This is not a it's not a closed-end article that says, oh, it's 3.2 million if you don't. What happens if you don't? What if we're at 4 million? Do we stop? What do you do? Say, oh, gee, we can't finish the project because we're at 4 million and the thing said 3.3. You'll be back again in the fall, okay, or whenever the project gets started. We'll be back again for an amendment to Article 3 of the 2018 warrant that says 3.3 million needs to be upgraded to something else, okay?
And that would happen if that was the case.
That's going to happen. You can write that down. So it is written, so it'll be done. I'll guarantee you that 3.320 million is not the number, okay? We're just jumping into something because the state's got a problem. And they've had a problem. If they built their own processing plant on their property, okay, they could build it for 1.1 million? I don't think so.
Well, we believe that it would be higher than that.
Of course you believe it. I would do it too. If you give me a Mercedes for $10,000, I'll take it instead of buying my Chevrolet.
Right.
Okay, so they're jumping in with 1.1 million, which is great. They're clean after that. They wash their hands and wait for us to get it to work.
And I think more details need to be worked out with the Housing Authority on the monies available. I know their engineer has been spending time recently looking at the site and kind of reevaluating what that cost could be. So in reality, that cost for whatever they were going to build there, a treatment plant with a now probably a raised bed for disposal on site, not unlike you see other places in town, very expensive. And I don't believe, I haven't looked in detail, I don't believe that 1.1 million reflects that. So I think that down the road, there's a possibility that that number for their own plant could in fact go up, which means, and I want to speak for that grant program because I'm not familiar with it or what their limitations are, but the possibility of them putting more money than the 1.17 also exists. I also want to comment about the cost of the project. This project and a per-foot cost for the sewer, we've taken a look at a profile. This is not a very deep sewer, okay? And by the way, size of pipe is immaterial when it comes to putting a sewer in. It's basically the depth of excavation, what you're excavating, and believe it or not, backfill and paving. So here, in this project, it's not the pipe that's the costly part of the job. It's backfill and a state highway. That is the major expense, and we've included $100 a yard for that backfill. That is the critical element here of the project. After that, it's a state highway, so the thickness of paving and the material it needs put in, that's also a major cost that has also been put in here. So we're looking at a cost per foot, just give a feel for this, of somewhere between, and I can't remember exactly the number, it's between $320 and $350 per linear foot. So the cost that's in here is very high, recognizing that this is an expensive sewer to put in the ground. Okay? And we've looked at the profile to see that, make sure we're not dealing with a deep sewer either. I mean, the stuff, the pipe on the Wheaton property, it's going to be minimum cover. You don't have to put any services in, so that actually helps you. And then from there, it's gravity all the way to the high point out. We've kind of actually identified where that is. The other benefits, and I mean, I'm not trying to sell this, I'm just trying to say the features, I guess, of what this project would do. At the high school and the L school, as we talked about last week, the septic systems are still in play. The septic tank is still in play. Those will be out of play. The pump stations at those facilities would be out of play. So there'd be gravity connections without a septic tank. So the school system would be much better off with, in fact, a gravity sewer. So I'll never guarantee that, that something won't change, the state won't change a permit, whatever. I can't, it's, I could say, we could double it, and I would say, oh yeah, there's no problem. We could add 10%, I'd say, would I be more comfortable with it? Obviously. But our sense is the contingency factors that are built in here into this cost and on the high cost we've used per foot are more than sufficient to cover that cost today. Asphalt, who knows? Maybe oil becomes, crazy expensive again, and pavement becomes expensive again. That could change. There's all sorts of things that happen. But on the other side, the flip side, the Mass Works grant is a real possibility that I know Representative Barrows has already been talking to the people at the state about. So I think that yes, we haven't cast everything in concrete. We don't have final design plans. We haven't done borings. We've looked at the corridor. We've looked at the state highway where we can actually put this line. There will be some areas where looks like we'll be able to get off of the paved road. But like I think we said last week, most of the people have used corridors the easy way. They've tried to get off the road, the edge of the pavement. They've done everything they could to stay away from state highway. We may not have that luxury everywhere, and those costs are also factored here.
And again, the availability of the funding, if we don't meet this deadline, that money's gone.
On the grant, you mean the 1.1? I don't know.
Right.
I know Mike might have talked to people today.
Well, no one can say for sure, but I know Donald Trump has talked about doing away with all CDBG funding. So we know the money's there now. We don't know if it's going to be there later. And I just want to clarify something. The Housing Authority is not just paying the 1.1 million. That is cost that will help us delay some of the borrowing, but they have to pay tie-in fees just like everybody else. So,
And their tie-in fee is gonna go towards our bond repayment, as well as the school system as well. Because the school system obviously has a budget that they need to use for their treatment. They use their treatment facility, they have 3 facilities. So they have a cost, they have a budget for that. And what we try to do is we try to level fund this whole thing so that their costs are not going towards their pumping anymore, their maintenance towards their sewage treatment plant. Their cost is now tied into the sewer itself.
So,
I still don't understand why if the only sewage that would be going through that line that we put in through the pipe would be the housing authorities coming down to and connecting in through to the back of the Yale School. where the Yale stuff and the high school stuff would also come in, and then we'd have to build it from there over to take all of that. Why isn't that 4-inch main enough if all it's gonna have, we've got in place? Why isn't it enough to just handle if it only is handling the housing authority and nothing else?
We're gonna try to pick up all the businesses and the residents on West Main Street. It's an economic development.
You're not doing it now. I mean, we got that sewer line in there now, you haven't done it.
No,
We
that's,
don't have a sewer line. There's no sewer line in West Main Street right now, and that's part of the problem. A lot.
Well, no, all right,
a
I'm
lot of
talking
those-
about from the high school on up.
Yeah, that 4-inch line cannot be used, no one can get into that. That's a forced main. It's not to be used for any other tie-ins.
All right, but can we just tie in the housing authority to that? And so only the housing authority stuff would be coming down that line, all the way to the high school. It's already in there.
we would, to use that you're talking about the 4-inch line that exists, you
Yeah.
mean? In order to tie the.
That in to be a sewer line.
Okay, to tie the housing authority into that line and move it to the center, we have to flip it, and we also have to flip the high school and the Yale School would also have to be reversed to go this way.
I'm talking about going out Seminary Way. I'm talking about bringing it down into where the high school, the pump station is behind the
And the Yale School.
And then going from there, where that pump station is, goes directly into Seminary Way, and then down the other way, and if we use that 4-inch main to come down that far, that's already in there. And no, it isn't, doesn't go beyond the schools up to the center. But this whole business of building it up through the center and down again seems to me nonsensical. When you've got these other alternatives, some of which is in place. We have a problem to solve. Let's solve the problem, but we
So-
don't need to spend an uncalculated amount of money. I think you could figure out much more easily what it would cost if you were going through the back of the Yale School and down Seminary Way than you can. I agree with you. Going up through the center, you don't know what you're going to run into.
Just so you know, that 4-inch line ends about, I think, about 800 feet beyond the entrance to the high school. That's where that 4-inch line ends, okay? It doesn't
But
go,
it connects. Right now, it connects and it's taking ammonia the other way.
correct,
So reverse it.
right, but then, okay, so what you're saying is, I'm trying to figure out again how this would work based on what you're laying out here. What you're saying is reverse it and then go back through the school properties from there?
Yeah, have it go all the way back in the line that now exists to that pumping station, and then build from that pumping station out Seminary Way and down. And you've got the line along Route 123 already there, and you've got the connection that comes into the Yale School. Then you go back along Seminary Way, which would be a pretty easy dig, and down a small section of 140 to Seminary Way, but no further than you have to come up 140.
The one thing I'd, like Bernie said, this would not do is sewer anybody in West Main, any other properties in West Main.
Part of my problem was, I think of West Main as being much longer. Your definition of West Main is a shorter distance than I was thinking. But, yes, you're right.
There would
I
be no other
understand that.
connections.
Do we have lots of sewer problems in that area? I mean, do we have sewage problems with any of the,
That I can't talk about. All I can
nobody-
tell you is that, based on the
I mean,
work,
the church isn't telling you it needs sewage, or the Historical Society isn't telling you it needs sewage?
what I can tell you is that in the overall game plan for sewering has been laid out by the commission with their report. This section of Route 123 was the first phase scheduled to be done. That's all I can tell you.
I just think in terms of solving this particular problem, there's probably a much more sure way in terms of estimating cost, and one that's less expensive and far less disruptive. And I find this so much of an open-ended thing, and as Tom was saying, I am not convinced at all that the project as you delineate it will eventually be able to be done for the amount that you suggest. Maybe it's just been burned too much in terms of other things that have happened at other times in the town for which you're not responsible.
Thank you.
I just want to emphasize that this project is not only to solve a problem, but it's also to meet a plan. Everyone talks about planning, we should be doing planning for the future. This was the plan to soar West Main Street, the business district on West Main Street. And this is part of the plan when we did the town center soar, when we agreed to expand the treatment plant. One, we need to solve this problem at the Housing Authority. Two, we need to meet the plan that we had to provide storage along West Main. Three, we need to increase the number of users we have in the system to pay for the expansion. It's not fair to keep that burden on the users we have right now. There's a need for storage to begin with, and there's a need to help those users that are in that, going to be paying for that expansion, because it's all enterprise funding. And this is a way for us to solve a problem, continue our plan, have more users into the system to help defray the cost to the users for the expansion of the treatment plant, and continue on with the plan that we have started.
So it's part of a pre-existing plan to sewer this area anyway.
Yes.
And did you happen to have a cost of what it would cost as a separate item just to sewer it as part of the plan that you have?
We have generated new costs based on this plan because it's a bit of a hybrid. There's a very minor change to this, and that's putting a pump station at the Housing Authority. Under the game plan for sewering the area, that pump station would be further west on West Main. Because actually the slope of West Main Street is down and continues to flows downhill, and actually to about where the middle school is. So this is a very minor change to put a pump station at that location.
So basically, you're going to do this anyway, or plan to do it sometime in the future? Okay, well, me too.
Just, I'm not completely familiar with the overall process, so I understand here, if the article goes onto the warrant, and then the town votes, and it gets approved, it states in here that there are other checks and balances that will occur. It mentions the Board of Selectmen. Is there anything else that is in the process as far as moving the project forward? I'm just thinking ahead as far as, would you guys automatically go off and request, the funding or the bonds, or does it still have to go through other approvals like selectmen and so forth?
It would still. Let Mike, I think Mike's best to comment on
The
that.
selectmen have to approve the borrowing when that comes forward.
I mean, I assume
they'd
so. I
be
just want
reviewing
to, the reason I bring that up is because it isn't just a free-for-all right away today, right? There's still other checks and balances that are gonna happen here, and there'll be other opportunities for us to discuss this in
We have
further.
earmarks that we have to,
Yeah.
when we borrow from the state revolving fund, we have earmarks that we have
Yep.
to perform. We have performance that, they won't release the bonding or the money unless the work's been done and completed.
And also, that'll give us some time to do some further investigation as far as, maybe we'll do some borings and other things to.
Oh, that's all part of it.
Because we know that, I mean, I think we all believe there is a risk here that it could cost us more money than we were estimating, and
And we don't go out and borrow 3.32 million if we don't need that amount, right? If it's less. If it was more, we'd have to come back, obviously, but if it's less, we don't borrow any more than is needed to.
You can't.
When we did the Wheaton College, when we put the center pump station in at Wheaton College, and we were originally gonna go down 123 to the hump, that was one figure that we came and we asked for. But then things changed. The LG Norris, we all know historically, was in trouble. So what we did was, and what Fran did, Weston Sampson, was we redesigned the location in the area of how that center pump station, which is vital to the rest of the leg of the sewer project that we'll be proposing within 30 years. This is a This is a progressive type of thing. This is the second leg of the journey. This was the first one, placing this pump station right here. This is the low spot in town. This is gonna be the collection, the main collection system going forward for Norton. Everything's gonna go, mostly everything is gonna go through this station. And it's gonna follow the same line down Pine Street, down Plain. And what we decided to do, and we helped out the LG North, we took the LG North off of continually pumping a septic system, so on and so forth. We put a gravity sewer line in at the very last leg of the journey, and it goes into the main transmission line. And we had to ask for extra money. That's what the whole process is designed to do. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell you that $3.32 million will do what we expect this to do. If we run into a problem, we'll have to come back to you. And if we come into a design that we have to look at, we'll have to come back to you.
What's the time expectation?
For construction?
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier with capital planning, that if you appropriate the money at the special town meeting, the applications would go to the state, different departments of the state in August. Those monies would become available to be spent on January 1st. You would not start construction with this kind of work. You don't work in the wintertime. You can only work when it's good weather. And some things, part of the job, if in fact you do grow the center, would be timed so that it would be done at the least disruptive time you could possibly do it.
Right.
So the work would probably start in the spring, could probably be done based on the length of pipe. You're looking at total about 6,400 feet of pipe that's part of this. You could probably do it in one construction season, but then you wouldn't be finishing the job until the next year. You'd wait and do final paving, next spring or summer. So this line could be really available to be built, to be used as early as next fall. I'd say probably the following spring.
Right.
Is a better time.
Talking 2 years.
18 months.
18 months. Okay.
Have the business owner or the property owners along that stretch of West Main been approached to see their interest in hooking up to this?
Not at all.
Nope.
Not at all. I think maybe there's some anecdotal information.
They must, they're required to.
Required to by charter.
So, and I assume that would all take place as part of the one construction season we were talking about?
Yes.
All those hookups.
Yeah, they won't have a choice.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kimball is,
Mr. Kimball. Thank you.
So it wouldn't all be part.
I'll get out of the way.
Thank you.
The capital met on this earlier tonight, and I hear what you're saying about construction. I'm hearing what you're saying about, all the issues that come with it. We're a small town. I work in the town of Norwood quite a bit. We've been tearing up Main Street, Washington Street forever, and it's been under construction for a long time. Construction is going to happen. If we're going to make this happen, we have to look to the future. Now, we have to consider what it's going to take to build commercial in a village commercial district, what we can do with that particular part of town. And this is the first step in creating an area where we have sewerage. We don't have to worry about failing septic systems. I don't know what the businesses are doing through there right now. I've seen them pumped a few times. I don't know what's going on. Not going to even get involved in the cost factors and whether or not this is enough money or not. What I will say is, if you want to build something, you have to build it so they will come. If you put it down Seminary Way, which is Wheaton College property, and I'm not faulting them in any way for this,
Way is town.
if it happens down there, they will come, and they will build what they need to build over there. So keep in mind that we're in better shape if we can keep it on West Main Street. And I don't even want to talk about the center and the traffic light and the fiasco that could happen there. But maybe we could talk to the Historic District and say, District Commission, maybe we could talk and say, maybe we can go by the old schoolhouse. Maybe we can go behind the church. Maybe we can stay out of the intersection. The only thing I'm suggesting is I would encourage you to stay focused on West Main Street and not run over Hill and Dale in a field behind it that's not going to generate any kind of revenue for us whatsoever. In the future, we're going to look at West Main Street as our next opportunity to raise and create some additional tax dollars. And this is the first step in it. And Franny's right. We've been talking about this for years. This didn't come out of the sky. We've been talking about sewering West Main Street for a long time. And the college has done a pretty good job of taking care of most of it beyond the traffic lights. We need to start working about what we're going to do on the west side. Now, we did have a brief conversation tonight about the middle school. And it's a thorn in my side as it is as much as it is in your sides. I get it. But, you know, the possibility of turning that facility around, using that 4-inch that's already in the ground, building a $750,000 pumping station, that's what it would cost, and pumping that stuff back down West Main Street, that's a possibility. The downside to that is, again, you're missing all those connections along the way where you have an opportunity. That could be another alternative. I think the state needs to step up more and do something about the housing. And I think they need to come to the table and talk to us about it. But we can't allow grants and other issues to fall to the wayside. We're going to do this. Now, we can do it now and go across the meadow behind the schools, or we can do it in 10 years from now and tear up all of West Main Street. I don't know which is going to be better, but at some point you got to bite the bullet. The greatest opportunity, one of the greatest opportunities we have in this community right now to raise additional funds is West Main Street. We've zoned it properly. We've got it ready to go. You know, Mike took most of my thunder as far as, you know, what's going to happen down there, but, you know, there are other options or other issues we can look at. And we have to come up with a creative way to make this happen. And the sooner we can get it done, the better. The Housing Authority, for what it is, it's a state agency. I totally get it. They got more money than we have. At the same time, it's got to get done. We have citizens living in there that live in this town that have a serious problem there, and we got to figure out how to fix it. They need to help us. But, you know, I get the dollars and cents, but there are checkpoints in place. We do have things that we can control. I'll tell you right now, if they don't need all the money, we're not going to give it all to them. They're not going to borrow it all. If they go beyond it, and it may happen. We just put a well at the Trent Memorial. We went down 20 feet and hit ledge. That was a good thing for a well, by the way, just so you know. Because we only had to go down 160 feet in order to hit water, the water that we needed. We went down on the Common. We went 600 feet.
What, 600?
We had 0.1 gallons of water. We had no water. We just had to blow that thing and open it up, infract it in order to create a water flow, when we now have 15 gallons of water. Point is that they don't know what they're going to hit in that street any more than we do. They're going to hit stuff. And I remember when they were putting in the new water line, when they did it, they hit some stuff. They hit ledge. I mean, it's going to happen. We don't know how far down it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. So hopefully there's some contingency in this to make sure that doesn't happen. But we want every cent we can get from the state, either through a grant or through funding or through housing or whatever it takes in order to help us, you know, build this project. I did hear something, maybe Frank can answer this for me, that this project almost would be self-serving, would almost pay for itself. Could you answer that question for us?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the Diane Mel Gallagher, who until yesterday was on the commission, actually did a spreadsheet, a workbook actually, with linked Excel spreadsheets laying out the costs. It's just so you know, it's the exact same format that was used when we put together the cost for Wheaton and the cost that Wheaton would be paying. And based on an initial look-see, right now, it looks like between the schools and the Housing Authority and what they're contributing together and what they would contribute, for instance, the Housing Authority, they would be spending another $100,000 a year if they should build a treatment plant just to run it, that those costs would be flat. So that's, again, there's a fair amount of assumptions. There's certain numbers that in her spreadsheet she pointed out that need to be verified with the Housing Authority and with other folks in town. But in fact, on an annual basis, the dollar amounts would in fact be flat based on what's happening today.
Paul?
Just a sort of side point, when we were talking about construction, just so that everybody knows, we could put this in, and all of the residents along must tie in, but they have, I think it's 5 years.
Yes.
Yes.
So we could be digging across the street and digging up 123 and all of these things.
No, Paul.
The tie-ins are not.
They all go in at once. All the tie-ins go to the property.
Yeah, go to the property edge. Yeah, but yeah,
When the pipe is put in,
yeah.
as they go by a property,
Yeah.
the lateral goes to the property.
That's what I meant.
So there won't be piecemeal. In other words, when Lloyd over here, number 3, wants to tie in 2 years down the road, we don't have to dig 123 back.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I understand.
So all the
But
infrastructure will be
my point
placed
is that people
during the
don't
time.
have to tie in right away.
Right,
They've got up to 5 years.
they do.
before they
That's the
have
bylaw
to
right
tie
now.
in.
Well, you're very, convincing, but I'm looking at this as an opportunity for economic development to the town. I guess that's what the MassWorks grant was all about, was economic development. It's recognized by the state, and, if there's any time that we need more development in town to raise revenues, it's now, and I see this probably, we won't have many opportunities left, other than we have the rezoning articles coming up at town meeting. But they're few and far between, and I don't think we should, personally, I don't think we should miss this opportunity.
And also, Mr. Chairman, if I can just add one more thing. What we're looking at is, I'm trying to point out that this is a series of projects. We have a comprehensive wastewater management plan in place right now. It serves the town for approximately 25 to 30 years. We had to do this, Weston and Sampson developed it, for the expansion for the Mansfield, Foxborough, Norton sewage treatment plant. This was a major key item right here. This is going to be, it is the heart and soul of our sewer system right now, as we speak, as we go forward. Placing this is the next leg. And then we're gonna further look to expand down West Main Street towards Chartley and up Washington Street. But that's not what we had to talk about tonight. What we had to talk about tonight is placing infrastructure that's gonna provide the Housing Authority and the two schools relief. And it's also gonna create economic development in this area, as will the next leg of the journey when we get there, approximately 3 to 5 to 7 years from now.
Mike?
So, yeah, Mike, I agree with you. I think one of the issues that's gotten us to where we are today is things like John Scott Boulevard, where we had a plan in place, didn't follow it, and put residential property where we could have had commercial. So I'm going to support this with you.
Getting out of this guy's way.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, Luke Grant, Water Sewer Commissioner. The one thing I've listened patiently to everybody else and nobody's mentioned is the cost. I'm in construction. The cost of construction never goes down. The flowable fill, which we have to put in the state highway, the price will go up. In 5 years, construction cost, installation cost will be higher. Asphalt, all of it most likely continues to rise. The other thing that comes to mind, traffic in 5 years. Not significantly higher, but everything will squeeze it together. And the other thing that I haven't heard really that brought in too many times, the middle school is not at a critical point, but if you can get the high school and the Yale school off, the middle school will be able to stand on its own. And again, we're not trying to have a last minute sales deal where get it now, but the Housing Authority comes with $1 million little peach attached to it. If you can somehow turn that to what we all need, because this is a community. The Housing Authority is merely our citizens, and it's funded by the state, but it's us. So we all have to get together and say, we have a little bit of funding for it. Prices are only going to go up. And as far as the path, if you can look just those 5 or 10 years and see maybe a house turned into a professional building and where they can put a parking lot, but they can't put that over a septic system. You need sewer to the actual next step of our town. That's what we're really talking about. Thank you.
I just look personally myself, there's still a lot of variables here that we keep trying to pin down that we don't know. In the 2-week conversation that we had, it went from 2.9 to 3.3. Today, again, having conversations with the school, what is the plan? We talk about development on that street, and I think Bank of America has been gone for how long? And that lot is still vacant. What's gonna happen? We do have a plan. Why is it taking so long to put something in there? There was plans made for that area that were shut down that I know of. So that still sits vacant. So what is that plan? If we have a plan for the rest of this, can we see that plan in a 5 or 10 year plan to see what that is? When we start talking about going down Washington Street and everything?
Right. Well, that will be, I imagine that there's no sewer where the Bank of America property is now. So if there were sewer there, people could come in with a a condo up and down professional office space. I can't imagine what it will be, but it will be more than something that has to be dedicated area to the septic system.
That's one thing I haven't heard as a reason why not to develop that yet, till just now. So I don't know what the reason is, but that's definitely not one of them.
All right, I think we're
Thank
ready
you.
to take a vote. Thank you very much. Okay, do I have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I request to approve Article Number 8, Special Town Meeting, the West Main Street Sewer Extension Project.
This motion and a second. I don't think there's any further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
Mr. Chairman, if we could reconsider Article 3 on the special?
Chairman, I move that we consider Article 3.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
What it says.
Opposed? Unanimous.
And Mr. Chairman, we have some items to add to Article 3, operating budget supplements. Obviously, the largest being snow and ice. So from free cash, we're looking to appropriate $74,650. $68,350 is snow removal. $5,000 is for data processing, and $1,300 for council on aging expense. And then out of the dog fund, looking for $6,400 to be transferred into the salary account of animal control and into town clerk, which you already voted on, $2,890 for the town clerk's budget. And so the snow and ice, not too bad this year, only having to appropriate another $68,350. Keith did a good job, and I think he has his bins pretty well filled with salt for next year. And on the Council on Aging, they just had some shortfall in their natural gas account and the water and sewer. And they had a leak, a problem with one of the toilets in the facility that was an expense under their repair and maintenance of $170 that they didn't anticipate.
So,
These individually?
well, yeah, I mean,
Individually?
three are operating budgets, and then
Yeah.
two are transfer, or, we've already transferred 2890, so we only have to
That one's
transfer,
done.
that's
Yeah, that
6,400.
shows us done.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that has to be moved in separate.
Do it,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
I'll second it. You do it, I'll second it.
Move Article 3, Special Town Meeting, operating budget supplements to the amount of $74,650. Or you want to do a separate
I
line
think
item?
you have to do every one. of them.
Separate line item,
Yep.
okay. Operate in Department 155-570, data processing, the amount of $5,000.
Second.
all those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay. Move Department 423-570, snow removal, expense $68,350.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
And 541-570, council on aging, expense $3,100.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous.
And then the
Transfer.
transfer from account number 019-293-100, Department 161-570, $2,890.
We already did that one.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
I'm
the
sorry,
60.
$6,400, I'm sorry, so it'd be 001292510, the amount of $6,400.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous? And one final on the,
Yeah, one final on the annual for now. It would be Article 3, retirement expense. And I'm recommending $73,000 to cover retirement expense, and this would be raised and appropriated.
Is that number?
73,000.
73,000 even?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, move to raise and appropriate an amount of $73,000, Article 3, separation expenses.
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Unanimous?
And for any other articles you want to take up on the night of town meeting, instead of meeting next week?
You're right. Well, the next meeting will be a town meeting. I don't think there's anything
Okay,
that'll come up before then.
thank you.
And- Thanks. And just, was there any expectation that at town meeting, we'll have the collective bargaining?
I know we're going to have at least one, possibly three. I can let you know that.
And well, you know how we feel
Yep.
about, that's seemed to be practice, to just present them 15 minutes before town meeting. It doesn't really give anybody any time to let that sink in a little bit, but, you know, that it may or may not happen, but
Yep.
just, we'll
Okay.
see when it happens. All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
We do have one last
Piece of business?
piece of business. As we all know, our recording secretary, Sarah Lyons, has been with us for 10 years as the recording secretary. I don't know how you did it. And she's told us that this is going to be her last year, so we just, as a committee, wanted to express our gratitude to you for all, you do an excellent job of writing minutes. I learn more from your minutes sometimes than the meeting itself. So, on behalf of the committee, we just wanted to give you a little something
Come on up, Sarah.
to thank you.
Make sure you're recording this, though.
Yeah, this is part of the official minutes. That's right.
A steady hand with the pen and a grounded presence in the room for 10 years. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. You guys do it for free.
So do you. Well, when Paul and Tom, their time, they get granted a marble. We gotta, they'll fight that out.
We get the sundial. They didn't have clocks then.
All right, now, did your letter to the,
Oh, yes, yeah, this final piece of business. You can
Can't read it, so.
I'll take it home.
take that, Steve. Paul, you can just pass that down to everybody.
When do you have to have this?
She requested it like late in the week.
Could you email it? Any way to email it to Paul, so he
Yeah.
can make any
I'll take
corrections?
this.
No.
Yeah, then if you want to make corrections to it, then you can email it right back to him, and he's done.
Okay, if you would do that. Sorry,
No
Yeah,
problem.
that makes,
I already got one
can't read it.
for the spelling.
it's not a problem.
I think everyone can just review it, and if any corrections, we can do it through email or
We
whatever.
can do it in the morning, by 1 o'clock would be great.
Sure.
I can have it over to Michelle at the end of the day.
All right. So our next meeting is May 8th, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, okay.
The high school cafeteria usually?
High school cafeteria.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?